What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato, and today's conversation is with Juana Whitmore. Juana is a business strategist, an accredited small business consultant, and is launching her newest business venture, NextFemme Financial, here in December. This is an incredible conversation for any entrepreneur who is struggling to figure out why they can't grow, because we talk about a couple of the biggest reasons why entrepreneurs have a hard time growing their business. One of them is because of systems and processes. They don't effectively track and document, more importantly, their systems and processes. Without systems and processes, you don't have a business, you just have a job. So that is very important. And then the other one is delegating. Delegating, it goes along with systems and processes. If you don't have systems and processes in place, you cannot delegate to people so that you can unload things so that then you can go work on the business. Now, of course, we focus and talk about a whole host of other things as well. We talk about how Juana started off at Target. She didn't end up finishing college, went and got a job at Target for 15 years, and then decided to go back to college. During that same time, she also started a business and so on. Just an incredible journey, really, that she went on. And now she's launching her next business venture, NextFemme Financial, where she's striving to help women entrepreneurs understand their financials better, something that she's seen through her work and helping entrepreneurs along the way, and something that I've seen so much as well, just understanding basic financial acumen and basic financial verbiage and what things mean on a balance sheet and so on and so forth. If you understand those things, not only in business, but in your personal life as well, then things can become so much easier. You can see where money's moving and how money's flowing and where things are coming in and where things are going out. And when you start to put those things together, you can start to make just better decisions for the business overall, or again, for your financial life. So get your pen and paper out, get ready to take some notes, and enjoy this conversation with Juana Whitmore. All right, Juana, geez, oh, Pete, I kind of did it again. Say,
All right.
it's okay. I'm like, I've practiced this 5 times because, of course, naturally, of course, naturally, it's like, what did I want to say whenever I first started name La Juana? And I'm like, well, that
Yes.
didn't, let me look and find. I'm usually pretty good about that. So I'm like, all right, I know how to do this, but I'm mixing them together. So can you
Yeah.
say it for me? I should have done this before
It's
I hit
Luana. Yeah, no, it's okay. It's Luana.
Luana.
Yes,
Luana.
yes. Yep.
Not even like a not an emphasis on an H. Luana.
No, no, just Luana. Yep.
Very nice.
Yep.
That's
Thank
much
you.
easier. Very good.
Yeah.
No, beautiful name for
I've heard
sure.
it. Thank you. I've heard it all. I've heard it all.
Oh, well, good. No, I'm sure you're used to it. So you just kind of
Yes.
like, oh yeah, that sounds good.
Yep.
So I'd like to start at the beginning of your story. So from what I can tell, you went to school and got your entrepreneurship degree,
Mhm.
uh, small business management, maybe it was another
Mhm.
part of that.
Mhm.
And you ended up in corporate America with a job at Target. I'm
Mhm.
assuming you went into entrepreneurship in school with some sort of idea of maybe being a small business owner, and then ended up landing yourself somewhere else. That's an assumption. So tell me what
Yeah,
that
that
looked
would
like.
that would have been a logical journey,
Are,
but not quite what
any of our
happened.
journeys logical,
No,
really?
no, that would have been logical, but that's not quite what happened. So actually started school. So I'm old. So I graduated high school in 1989, and I started college, and I didn't finish. I went in. I then went on to work for Target after doing a couple years at a financial organization. I went to Target, and it was there that I was doing. About halfway through, I was there for 18 years. About halfway or so through, I was kind of like, this is great, but I really want to do more in terms of working with folks kind of individually and one on one. So I started doing some volunteering, working with nonprofits. And then I started an organization that brought visibility to businesses in the Twin Cities. So it was an online magazine. I did a lot to help small businesses get in front of their customers. And through that work is where I really started to learn kind of the plight of entrepreneurship and small business owners. Because I've been in corporate America almost my entire journey. And while there's absolutely some translation and some things that I bring to entrepreneurs from my work there, it is its own beast. And so as I learned the difficulties that they were going through my business, I then decided, okay, I'm going to go back to school and get a degree because my original degree was in psychology. Go back and
Which is
get a
very
degree
helpful
in
for
small.
entrepreneurship as well.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Small business management, entrepreneurship, and then I went and got my master's in nonprofit administration, which is great because most of the businesses that I work with now are social enterprises. So there's that overlap between those two things, which is really great. And then I started consulting small businesses. So bringing my corporate knowledge, I also got certified as a small business consultant and my academic knowledge to help entrepreneurs, really market and grow their businesses. So that's how I got there. I left Target, like I said, after 18 years to grow my own business, my own consulting. I took a little bit of a detour because nothing ever happens the way you plan it, and I actually ended up consulting with a nonprofit that supported entrepreneurs in the Twin Cities. Which was great. It really introduced me to the broader ecosystem, and it was actually the right move to do that before I expanded my own business. So yeah,
Yeah, no
that's how
doubt.
I got here.
Very
Yep.
incredible. So you were out of school for how long before you went back then?
Let's see, probably 15 or so years, maybe.
Wow.
If I'm counting right, maybe 15.
Well, good for you for going back and,
Yeah,
and finishing it up.
yeah.
Well, like you said, you believed it was going to help you moving forward, and clearly it
Mhm.
has significantly, especially that
Yeah.
nonprofit part that you added on at the end of that.
Yeah, it really did. Now, while I've got, do not get me started on on the nonprofit world and how problematic it is. The idea of social enterprise through my nonprofit work, working for nonprofits as well as my education, really does help me bring some of that work to social entrepreneurs. So it's great, but the nonprofit world's a mess.
Define mess. I'll get you a little bit started. How about that? Just a little bit started.
Yeah, soapbox, Luana. So the nonprofit structure is not built for speed or innovation. It's not built for autonomy of ideas, and it's not built for sustainability, right? So even if we just take the fact that you've got this board that is really who's running the show, even though you've got an executive team. Um, in many cases, this team cannot move without the board's approval, but the board only meets once a quarter, maybe once a month if you're lucky. How do you move an organization forward if you've got this team of people who are really running the show, who are not involved in the day to day, are very far removed from who you're serving, and are not together often enough to make decisions that are cohesive and innovative? It doesn't make sense. And then the donation problem, right, where nonprofits are dependent, unless they're smart, are dependent on donations from organizations that change their funding priorities often. And so if you haven't created a sustainable business model as a nonprofit where you've got earned revenue, you're actually selling something that people want, you're almost doomed to fail. So it's problematic for a lot of reasons. Yeah.
Very
And they
true.
don't pay and they don't pay people enough.
And they
They
don't
don't
pay
pay
people
people
enough.
enough. So you pay for innovation, you pay for a certain level of thinking, and nonprofits don't have access to that because they can't afford to pay for it. So
Right. Well, because they're reliant on donations. And if donations go
yes.
down, you
Mhm.
can't forecast where
Mhm.
donations are going to go. Whereas in a
Yep.
business, you can generally forecast, at least if you're running a
Mhm.
systematized business, you can generally forecast where things are moving. Whereas in a nonprofit organization,
Mhm.
how do you really forecast whether or not people are going to donate? I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
Yeah.
sunny today. Sure, I'll donate. It's rainy today. Nah, I
Mhm.
don't feel like it today. So, I can see how that can be tough. Now, the
Mhm.
structure, just so somebody who's listening who doesn't understand the structure of an organization, I'll say it, but I think I'm probably kind of wrong. I actually, I was part of a nonprofit a long time ago. And when I say that, it was like me and three people. So
Mhm.
I have no way in saying that that was a real thing. It was a thing that we tried and it just didn't end up panning out. The board is basically the business owner, if you
Mhm.
will, if you're thinking of it from a corporate standpoint. So you can't have a person that runs the business and they have a team that helps them run the business. You have the board that is the business owner, and then they hire or they're maybe they are the people who run the business also, but generally there's other people doing the work.
Mhm.
So that's why you're saying that it's impossible to really move anything forward because
Yeah.
the board, especially if you're trying to grow something significant, the board could be somebody who one person lives in Atlanta, another person lives in San Diego, another person lives over here. And how often do you get together for a Zoom
Mhm.
call every once in a while to make a decision?
Mhm. Yep.
So do I
Yeah.
have that
What?
kind of
Yeah. No.
structured
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's about right. It's interesting, right? Because the in the early days when the board, just like what you guys had, the board is a working board. The people that are running the organization are also on the board. That's a you have a better chance of being innovative as the organization grows, and you have a board that in many cases wasn't materially involved in the startup of the nonprofit, and to your point, may not even be in a position, location or otherwise, to meet often enough to move the organization forward. They are really just there to kind of green light or red light ideas based on their limited knowledge, right? And so it's really interesting. Also, I think what I find a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand is that while it's wonderful and noble to start a nonprofit, you don't have to have a nonprofit to do good work, number one. And number two, you don't own a nonprofit. So if you have any interest in building wealth, you do not own a nonprofit. The community owns a nonprofit and the board is representative of them. And so at any point, the board can say, oh, we don't care that you started this thing. We're getting rid of you because of XYZ. And everything that you built you're no longer involved. They have that power. So that's one of the primary problems I find with the nonprofit. So
I've never heard it laid out that way. So
mhm.
note to self, don't start any more nonprofits. Very good. But that is a very good
Yeah.
point that you don't have to, and I would argue that the most effective way, if you want to leave an impact on the world, the most effective way is to start a for-profit business. I mean,
Mhm. Yes.
because like you said, at least you can build something, you can deliver a service, you can deliver a product that you believe is
Mhm.
actually going to bring value to the customer, to the world, to whatever it is that you're going to do. And you dictate what happens to it, you and your team, and through your
Yep.
vision and your mission and your core values and all that good stuff. Like
Mhm.
that dictates what happens. Whereas, like you said, if you have this handful of people that are dictating what happens, it just makes it much more challenging.
Mhm. Mhm.
Very
Yeah,
good.
because they're bringing their own interest to the thing, and yeah.
That makes it tough. That makes it tough
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, it
But very
does.
well laid out. So, um, what were some of the things that you did learn while you were at Target that you think helped you down the road? You said you went in not having finished college at first. 15 years into it, you went back,
Mhm.
finished college while you
Yep.
were still at Target, and then
Mhm.
ended up leaving Target soon after that. So, what were some of the things that you learned during your time at Target that helped you once you did kind of move into your own thing, your own
Mhm.
entrepreneurial
Mhm.
journey?
Yep. So at Target, I was there, like I said, almost 20 years. So I saw a lot of cycles, right? And so the first thing that Target eventually got really, really good at is looking externally to understand how that informs where they need to go in the future, right? So, and I did a lot of that work in my business development roles and my business architecture roles. There was really understanding what's happening to technology, what's happening to consumerism, what's happening externally, so that we can then digest that information and determine where we want to go in the future. So when I bring that to my entrepreneurs, my entrepreneurial clients, one of the first things we do is we look at industry, we look at market, we try to understand where's the industry going, where has it been, and how do we get ahead of it instead of trailing it like most entrepreneurs do. We also did a really good job at Target at customer identification, so creating avatars, understanding them in depth, I mean, to the point where, what do they do every day? What time do they feed their dogs, kind of things, right? So where a lot of people might kind of poo-poo on that deep understanding of who your customer is, it's really, really helpful in understanding where they are at any given time, and therefore how do you reach them through your marketing efforts. And then the third thing we did amazingly well at Target was project management and systems management. I mean, that's what we did. And so a lot of my time there was in technology development. And so really understanding how technology can play a role in absolutely everything that you do, and then how to document that, right? Because entrepreneurs are not good at that, how to document that and create processes and create ways to manage projects over long periods of time, and spending a lot of money. So those are things that we did really, really well at Target.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, well, without systems and processes, you don't really have a business. You just
Yeah,
have a
I agree.
job, really, is
I
all you have, right?
I agree.
Um, One of the things that entrepreneurs do terrible, systems and processes. The other one
Mm.
is delegating. Now, of course,
Yes.
delegating kind of goes with the whole system and processes. Geez, oh, Pete's processes. They kind of go together. Like you can't
Yeah.
necessarily delegate without having the systems and processes in place. But
Yeah.
yeah, for sure, without the system, you don't have anything. You just have
Mhm.
something. Once you walk away from it, then things
It
fall
doesn't
apart.
exist. Yep. It doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. One of the things I ask entrepreneurs, if you get hurt tomorrow and you have to be in the hospital for a week, what happens to your company? Like who's running it? Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So,
A good metric that I always kept in my head, and I after 10 years, I we were not as far along as I would have liked to have hoped. But a good metric I always kept in my head is if I stayed away for X amount of weeks, what would happen? If I stay away for a week, can everything stay together? That was kind of like the first benchmark in my head. And I'm like, okay, I can stay away for a week, everything's okay. If I stay away for 2 weeks, does everything still stay together? I could stay away from 2 weeks, everything still stays okay. I don't think we ever got to the point where 3 weeks would be okay. Not that I could
mhm.
stay away for 3 weeks. 2 weeks is
Yeah.
definitely hard enough,
Yeah.
but that's kind of a metric that I think of is like if I stayed away for X amount of time, then would everything be okay? And if that got to like a month, if that got to 6 weeks, and I kind of use it as kind of like a mental model more than anything, because again, I don't think I could stay away from a business for that long,
Right.
but it's a good like mental tracker that if you're able to stay away for 6 weeks and everything runs smoothly, then you have a
hmm
business. You have an
hmm hmm
asset at that point.
Yep. Yeah. And you are actually leading the business versus working in the business,
Mm.
right? Yeah. So that would be the big difference there for sure.
And I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs really understand what that means.
No. So I think that's a fascinating point because first of all, you've got so many entrepreneurs that are solopreneurs, which is beautiful and great. But you also have but many entrepreneurs actually didn't get into business to run a business. And what I mean by that is they love to do the thing and they thought, well, I'm going to start a business so I could do the thing. But the truth is, if you really love to do the thing, the last thing you should do is probably start a business doing the thing because you will spend less and less time doing the thing than you do actually running the business. And running the business is doing the financials, leading your team, doing all of that stuff, right? That's entrepreneurship. Otherwise, you could go and deliver the thing working for someone else. If you wanted to, if you're a great cook and you want to be a chef, the last thing you should do is start a restaurant. You should probably go be a chef someplace because what you're going to be occupied with is where your waitress is at 7 a.m., right? When they're supposed to be setting up the tables. That's what you'll be concerned with. Yeah,
And then you're going to be the waitress and the chef.
exactly. Right.
Yeah, there are only 35 hats that you probably wear as an entrepreneur, especially when you're the first one in the door,
Yes.
the
Yes.
the first one there. You wear
Yeah.
35. Like when I first opened the gym, I was the cleaner,
Mm-hmm.
scrubbed toilets, I did all that good
Yeah.
stuff, cleaned up the gym, did all the administrative stuff, did all the finances,
Mm-hmm.
I was the everything until we hired our first coach, and then
Yeah.
I was still everything because all that meant was I just got to do less of the coaching, but then I got to do more of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I
Hmm.
think I'm one of the very few. Whenever I first started, I loved what I did, and I started the gym because I loved it. Of course, I loved
Hmm.
training and I loved doing that. But I think I'm one of the few entrepreneurs that actually knew that I wanted to go to the other side of it and I wanted to
Okay.
build to
Yeah.
the other side of it. I that also hurt me, I will say,
Mhm.
because what I let my drive to want to get there faster get in my way, and I think that's why we
Mm.
actually didn't progress fast enough, is because I tried to push too hard to get over here,
Yeah.
and I wanted to run it like it was already a $1 million business, but
Hmm.
it was $100,000 business or whatever it was at the time. So
Yeah.
I think you can also kind of get in trouble there trying to go too far too fast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are foundational things that have to be in place to make it stable enough to continue to move forward. And when I think about, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, I can really, speak to it in terms of the Twin Cities pretty in depth, is that we, not just the entrepreneur, but we also want to move entrepreneurs more quickly than what they're ready for, right? Meaning we give loans or grants and all of this support for them as though they were, in a different stage of their business than they're actually in. And so, to your point, a lot of entrepreneurs end up faltering because we haven't laid the proper foundations for them. And it's kind of like this drum I've been beating around the Twin Cities for a while. I think people are starting to listen. But it's true with their financial acumen. It's true with their operational acumen. It's even true with just their business vocabulary, right? We just kind of assume that people know the stuff, and then we kind of throw them in, and they're like, well, I don't know.
What do you mean accounts
So,
receivable? What does that mean? I
right,
don't.
right,
What
exactly,
am I receiving? I
exactly.
don't get it.
Hmm. Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, that is very true.
Hmm.
So, let's go back to your time. You're coming out of Target. You said you started a business. While were you still at Target when you started the business, trying to bring? You were still there.
Yep, I was there. It was like a little side gig for sure.
Little side
Yep.
gig. What
Yeah.
what got you to start that up while you were
Yeah.
still doing a full-time thing?
Yeah, it was. I'd always kind of been interested in entrepreneurship, and I'd tried a couple of things before that, early in my 20s, and 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 then I started to do some volunteering at nonprofits that were supporting entrepreneurs in the Twin Cities, and I really started to get kind of interested. And again, I started that business because I was seeing that entrepreneurs were just having a hard time marketing their businesses even locally, right? And then through that, I started to understand really why that was and what some of the challenges were with entrepreneurs themselves. And so that's how I got to the Juana Whitmore Consulting through that business. So yeah. Hmm.
Um, what were some of the as you were kind of like starting that up?
Hmm.
Well, let me ask this. How did you deal with both the full-time job at Target and then that at the same time? What did that look like, that interaction between the two?
It looked like a lot of late nights. It looked like, it did. It looked like me working. And at the time, I was also a single mom. My daughter's is an adult at this point, almost 30 years old. And so I was a single mom. So it really was, uh, I was waking up early, before I had to go to work and take her to school. And I was doing my side business. I was going to Target, and then I was leaving and picking her up and doing all the mommy things. And then I was, when she went to bed, that's what I did. I wasn't sleeping much, right? But, um, which is fascinating. I think about that grind and that drive, right? And, it's kind of missing today in a lot of folks and a lot of entrepreneurs. And I just think about how, and hungry is not the right word, but I was just so into what I was doing. I was so excited about it. And I was getting feedback that made me continue to want to move forward with it. Um, but I had no problem losing sleep. I had no problem, uh, you know, saving my own money to do what I really wanted to do. When I did finally leave Target, it wasn't without a lot of planning. I had a year's worth of my salary saved up because I didn't know if my business was going to be successful. But I think that there's so much given these days that people, it's almost like people have lost that grit to do on their own and to really work for things. But that's what I did. It was a lot of late nights, a lot of no sleep, a lot of saving money, and trying to get the thing off the ground. So yeah.
As you've worked with, to your point about people not feeling that urge to want to work hard,
Mhm.
which I totally agree with, by the way. As you've worked with entrepreneurs, have you found that with them as well? And I'm assuming that you have, since you said that.
Mhm.
And have you tried to help nudge them along and give them some urgency? And how have you done that?
So here's the thing. I am okay. So when it comes to my
Did I back you in a
entrepreneurship,
corner?
no. When it comes to my entrepreneurship consulting, so there's a difference between a coach and a consultant. I am at my core a consultant. That means I give you the steps and you do them. One, two, three, four, boom, 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 boom. I don't care about the mindset stuff that's blocking your way. I don't care about anything else. In consulting, I assume that the barriers that you have are business barriers or financial barriers. All other barriers I don't necessarily care about, right? So and
Fair.
so so when it comes to consulting, that's kind of how I think about it. So now, when I think about my NextFemme stuff, that's a whole different situation. There's a coaching element there. There's a lot of mindset work that I do there. But when I'm talking about entrepreneurial business consulting, this is what it is. I cannot care about your business more than you do. And so when
Facts.
you ask me, do I nudge people along? I don't. I don't beg. I can't. This is not, I have a company, right? I have
True.
a business.
Yeah.
And so but unfortunately there are, people who really want that. And so in part, some of my questions are, if you need someone to push you down this road through this journey, I think the question that you have to ask yourself is, are you an entrepreneur? And when we get really clear, and honest about the fact that everyone is not an entrepreneur, I think we could kind of start to funnel our resources a little bit better. But I don't nudge. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do this research, and I'm here to answer your questions. I'm here to educate you, but I'm not here to convince you of what you said you wanted, right? So yeah.
That would be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So good for you for
Yeah.
being able to do that effectively, because
Mm-hmm.
that would be really hard. Because my tendency in having been a coach for
Mm-hmm.
10 years in the health and fitness industry, all I want to do is grab somebody by the
Mm-hmm.
shoulders and shake them and go,
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah,
is
yeah,
wrong
yeah.
with you? You continue to step in your own way, and then you take
Yes.
another
Mm-hmm.
step, and then you
Mm-hmm.
move forward a little bit, and then you step in your
Yep.
own way again. I'm like,
Yep.
oh gosh,
Mm-hmm.
come on. Like, give
Yep. And
me.
mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
So what's interesting with NextFemme, that's a whole the that company is around teaching women, how to manage their personal finances so that they can have stronger businesses, right? Because there's a scientifically proven connection between these two things. And so, and I recognize exactly kind of what you're talking about. There's so much in how we think about money that's rooted in like how our parents thought about money, how they
True.
talked about money.
Hmm.
Um, and so much of there's, there are saboteurs and all of this stuff. So the first like three modules of this program are all mindset. It's all around you writing your money autobiography and determining why you spend money the way you do. Why do you keep, to your point, stepping in your own way? Who are your saboteurs? What is your superpower? We really talk, what are your values? How do you spend money in accordance with those values? So that's really what we do, a lot of that work in NextFemme that I don't necessarily do in my business consulting. So yeah, it's different. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it definitely is. But again, good for you for being able to hold back on that. Um, that's that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
So
I think that
did you?
came with time.
I'm sure it
I
did.
cannot tell you I was that way to begin with. Yeah.
I'm most definitely it did. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so were the things that you're teaching in NextFem, where specifically do you remember some examples of your own lessons that you learned of some of the things that you're teaching? You
Hmm.
standing in your own way, maybe.
Yeah, I think some of it is even before we stand in our own way, there's a lack of knowledge about how to manage money, and it's pervasive, in America. It is we don't learn. Even when I was a kid, we at least learned how to budget in home ec. And now this was a long time ago. We also had mock weddings with full wedding dresses and tuxedos, but that's a whole other story,
I was
right?
going to say, I
Right?
remember the checkbook for sure in home ec. I remember
Exactly.
going through the checkbook and balancing a checkbook. I remember that for sure.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Those things don't exist anymore. Like the kids aren't learning those things. And so and even at that point, when we learned those things, it wasn't enough. That didn't teach us how money actually worked. How do you make money? How do you make your money work for you? How do you invest? So there's just like a general lack of understanding. And then there's the kind of this pervasive math anxiety that is also kind of throughout this country. It's surprising how many people think they're bad at math and equate that to their inability to run their finances. And I'm like, well, you can add, subtract, divide, multiply, right? Right. Okay, so then you can do this. This is we're not talking algebra here, right?
Mhm.
Right. But it is debilitating, that fear of numbers. I mean, it's like when you open a spreadsheet, most people are just like, yeah, I'm done, I'm out. It's over, right? And so much of it is that. Now, for me personally, my kind of earliest problems with money were when I started school and I got all of those credit card applications at college.
Mhm.
And I applied for all of them and I got them all and I immediately spent all the money,
You're
right?
like,
I
great,
just
free
charged,
money.
yeah,
This is awesome.
right. I
Sure.
immediately charged them all up. And think about being in your early 20s and having $5,000 in debt, really not making any money, right? Because you're in school full time, and how that affects you. I mean, I was embarrassed. I was afraid. I didn't know what was going to happen. I ended up filing bankruptcy, and I didn't probably have to do that, right? There were other solutions that were available to me, but the bankruptcy lawyer who gets paid because you filed isn't telling me that there are other options that I could have done. So that was really, for me, and this was, again, like early 90s, right? But that was really kind of my first kind of understanding of how problematic money could be. And it really wasn't until I became grounded in who I was and what my values were that I became able to manage my money in accordance to those things. And so it's different and so here, let me give you an example. So if I'm working with someone and they tell me that their values are family experiences, for example, um, and yet they continue to buy the most expensive purse on the market every quarter. Those two things aren't lining up, and so one of the things we have to do is teach people how to, stand in who they are, understand what their values are, and then modify their spending to be in alignment with that. So yeah, I mean, it's a long journey. It's a long journey. Um, we don't know anything about the stock market in America and how that works. We don't understand what investing is. We don't understand the difference between investing and trading. Um, so many people continue to get taken, for lack of a better word, in financial scams and fraudulent companies simply because they don't know. One of the common ones right now that's happening is um, people are using these kind of financial apps as their bank accounts, and but don't not understanding who the backer is behind that. And in recent cases, when that backer goes under, then you don't have access to your money, and chances are it wasn't FDIC insured because it wasn't in the bank. So, so those things we have to start teaching people how to navigate.
Yes, I fully agree. Anytime you mention the word investing or business or anything like that to somebody, generally the answer is, well, that's too confusing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know anything about that. Well, that's too risky, or whatever the thing is.
Mm-hmm.
What people have a hard time closing the gap on is risky is only relative to the amount of knowledge that you have about the thing.
Yeah.
Do you know how the thing runs? Do you know how it works? Do you know how the system works? Do you know how the cogs turn? If you understand that, the more you understand, the more you mitigate the risk. That's with investing, that's with real estate,
Yep.
that's with business, that's with anything that someone says that's too risky. If you look at how people become financially wealthy, it is through those three things: investing in some way, shape, or form, real estate, or owning a business.
Yep. Yep.
All they did was figure out how the cog worked, how the machine worked, and then went and ran the play. And they just did it over and over again. That's all they really did. Now, of course, simple, but not easy. Like, of course, it takes
Right.
time. Of course, it takes effort. Of course, you have to figure it
Mhm.
out. There's a lot of falling flat on your face and then getting
Yep.
back up and then fall like you're sitting here talking about. Had to go through bankruptcy. Had to figure that out. Had to figure
Yeah.
myself out after that. Dig myself out a little bit of a hole.
Mhm.
Totally get it. So once you do that, I don't want to say the more, well, yeah, the more you fall flat on your face, the more you become resilient to it and just kind of go blah. But eventually you're falling flat on your face
Mhm.
is less detrimental, maybe.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
a hurt, like an obstacle is not as big of a deal once you get to a certain level and a certain knowledge level.
Yep, I agree. I think there are a few things also that we can do. We have to give ourselves permission to fail, right? And so saying that I can only learn uh if I try, and if I try, there is a chance that I will quote unquote fail. But instead of thinking of it that way, we could absolutely reframe that as a learning, right? What would I do differently next time? And to your point, if I understand the risk, then I can mitigate the risk that failure actually is less impactful to me, because I was able to mitigate the risk, right? So, for example, when I left Target and I saved up that year's worth of salary, I could have failed. But if I had failed, it actually wouldn't have mattered because I had mitigated the risk by saving in my emergency fund or whatever, in my investments, a year's worth of salary. So it all would have been okay. We also have to change our mindset and understand what the real impact is of failure. And in many cases, I remember talking to my sister when I was leaving Target, and I was like, oh, I can't do this. I can't start this business. I can't do this, go on my own, because I'm going to be homeless. I'll be sleeping in my car. I won't be able to pay for my daughter's college tuition. I mean, like, I had a long list of the craziest stuff that I thought was going to happen. And she's like, well, what do you mean? This is why you've got a network of people. This is why you have a support system. This is why you saved your money. This is why XYZ. But our minds work in such a way that we go to these worst case scenarios that probably aren't the case. There's no world in where I would be living in my car. Like, I could go live with my parents, I could live with my sister, I could live with my friends. Like, there was no world where that was a reality, but my mind went there as a worst case scenario. Mm-hmm.
That's well put. Yeah. Negativity bias is
Yeah.
all that really is. Human beings have a tendency to look at the negative and search for the negative and find the negative. We will always find
Yep.
it. It's always there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always two sides to every coin. You could also potentially look at the upside. Now, you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
go, of course, into the unrealistic realistic realm. Everything's going to be totally fine. This is going to be a super uber
Right.
success. Everything's going to be
Right.
great, which a lot of entrepreneurs tend to be that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there's a fine balance somewhere. If you can, again, protect your downside enough and focus on getting to this part over here, growing so that it can be successful, you'll actually
Mm-hmm.
more effectively move in that direction and not let that negative stuff kind of keep nudging
Yeah.
you backwards a little bit.
Yep. Very true. And I think I'm a big believer that we attract it to us.
Hmm.
That negative thinking just attracts more of it to us. So yeah. Yep.
So, how did you not let yourself, after, going into credit card debt, going through
Mhm.
bankruptcy, all that, very easily you could have spiraled out of control. Oh, everything is bad. I'm going to have this is going to be a terrible life moving forward, so on and so forth. Very easily could have convinced yourself that this is the way life is. How did you move out of that and figure out your values and who you are?
Yeah, some of it comes with time. Some of it comes with bumping my head against the wall and having my values violated. And what I mean by that is one way for people to really understand what their values are is to remember when they get really angry or when they're really happy. Typically, those are situations that either don't align or violate your values or don't. So, for example, if your values are fairness, like my sister's value is one of her values is fairness, and so when things are not fair, I mean, no matter what, it could be on a TV show. If things are not fair, she gets frustrated and angry because her values are violated. So it was really in doing a lot of self-reflection and really, I say, know thyself, know thyself, know thyself. Just really getting really comfortable and really knowledgeable about myself and how I act and behave and think and feel in different situations, and then aligning my future decisions either to get more of that or to avoid that, right? Also, I'm super curious. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm actually a doctoral student right now, and so I really just love to learn. And so when I find that I have a deficit in something, chances are I'm going to go all in the rabbit hole, researching and understanding how do I fix it or how do I at least mitigate it, right? So that it doesn't really affect how I perform. So, yeah.
Yeah, and curiosity, as far as I know, is one of the leading attributes of a good entrepreneur,
Absolutely. Yes.
right?
Yep. It's one of the first things I look for. Mm-hmm.
Curiosity. How curious are you
Yep.
about things? Are you curious are you about the world around you, about how
Mm-hmm.
to change what, your strategies, your products, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
So
Yep.
definitely a big thing to look at if you're maybe stuck or having trouble is how curious are you about the things around you? How curious about
Mm-hmm.
are you about your business?
Yes. Yep. How curious are you about human nature? Why people
Mm,
buy the things they buy? Why they use the products they use? I mean, I think about um, when we talk about creating your mission and understanding your customers. One of the things that I talk about is during the pandemic, a lot of things happened, right? And one of the things was that a lot of us, depending on our jobs, we were at home. Um, and with people that either we were alone or we were just with our family all day long, every day. Well, what ended up happening during the pandemic was that a lot of people neglected their dental care. And then and on the other end of the pandemic, it was super hard to get in to see your dentist because everyone was like, wait, I have a cavity. I've got this,
mm,
things that they didn't have before. And so as I talk to entrepreneurs, I ask them, why do you think that is? If we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you would think that people are brushing their teeth for health, because what we know is that when your teeth, like your gums, get infected, that actually can affect your heart. It could kill you in the long run, right? But what we actually can look and observe and say, if people were at home and they weren't around people and they weren't brushing their teeth, that means they weren't doing it for the health reasons. They were doing it because it's socially acceptable to have white teeth and
mm,
fresh breath.
mm.
And that is much higher up on the hierarchy of needs than that kind of like the basic needs stuff. So when you understand why people do what they do, why they think about why they think about things the way they do, you can more easily sell things to people. And it's not necessarily manipulation; it's just kind of meeting them where they are, right?
And I would say psychology is the same thing. At the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of this, you were talking about being a
Yep.
psychology major, or you were on your path to being a psychology
Mm-hmm.
major.
Yep.
And I joked that it's perfect for entrepreneurship. It's not a joke. It is
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship, like
It
understanding how
is.
to influence, manipulate, whatever word you want to throw in there. You're
Mm-hmm.
just trying to get somebody to do what you want to do if they're
Mm-hmm.
part of your team, or get them to buy the
Yep.
thing that you have. You can call it
Exactly.
what you want to call it. You can,
Yep.
whatever it is. The only difference is you feel manipulated when it feels icky, but
Mm-hmm.
you're happy when your friend's like, hey, you need to go buy this thing because this thing helped me a lot and blah, 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 blah. And your friend sat there and sold you on it, but
Mm-hmm.
you buy it. And if it ends up being this junk product, you don't blame your friend. It's just like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is a junk product.
Yep.
But they
Yeah.
influence you. They sold
Mm-hmm.
you on the product.
Yep.
So I would say
Absolutely.
psychology is the exact same thing.
It is for sure. It is psychology. Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It is for sure. Mm-hmm.
So Psychology, check. Go ahead and throw that on your things to study as
Yeah.
well, people.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, I love how you brought up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think
Hmm.
understanding that is a necessity also for entrepreneurs. Understanding why, I mean, that just helps you understand a lot of why people make the decisions that they do for sure.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're launching NextFemme at the end of the year.
And yep, in December. Hmm.
Super exciting. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank
Like
you.
we were talking about beforehand, I know that's a ton of work, getting something ready.
It
Um,
is.
what are you hoping to accomplish with it?
What I'm hoping is that we get more people and more women specifically talking about money. One of the problems that we have is that people don't really talk about money. They don't, I mean, it's like an
Taboo.
everyday conversation, right? It is absolutely taboo. I want more people talking about money. I want more people comfortable with money. And I want more people actually taking control of their personal finances because once that happens, like your brain is free to do other things. If you are always worried about money, whether or not if whether or not you're making a lot of money and you just don't know how to save it or spend it, or you're not making, or you think you're not making enough money to survive. Either way, it's taking up brain space that doesn't allow you to be innovative in your business or whatever. And then, like I talked about that before, that connection between personal finances and business finances. My ultimate hope is that when people learn how to manage their personal finances, they will bring those skills and habits into the management of their businesses, and then they'll have stronger businesses. So make better business decisions.
Yeah. And, you know, having a scarcity mindset all the time, especially when it comes to finances, is not a good, it's just,
No.
and I think a lot of people, like you said, live in that scarcity mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I you know, there's this feeling in society that like being successful and having money is somehow an immoral thing and somehow something that maybe you shouldn't strive for.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, which certainly anything on any degree can be used for good or bad. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter the
Yep.
thing. It's up for you to decide how to use it. The truth of the matter is money is a tool. It's not really you decide. You
Mm-hmm.
decide. It doesn't matter what it
Yep.
is.
Yep.
If you are in a place where your revenue coming in is significantly more than your expenses going out, are you less stressed or more stressed? Are you
Right.
less at peace or more at peace? That
Mm-hmm.
should be the question. Like, instead of being worried about how is society going to, feel about me potentially having more or less, like, anyway, that's a whole
Mm-hmm.
nother
No, no,
barrier I think
I
people have
agree.
to overcome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. I think what is the real selling point is that money is choice. When you have money, you have choices, right? Um, and with choice becomes freedom. And so I think that if I could get more people to understand that, to your point, you can do good and do well at the same time. They are not mutually exclusive. You can put on your face mask before you help somebody else. These things can happen, and they can happen in that order, and it's okay. Um, I think what's fascinating is that I work with a lot of entrepreneurs that when we sit down and talk about their business, one of the first things they want to do, and because I work with a lot of social entrepreneurs, they want to give back. They want to give. I want to give 15% of my profits away. I'm like, but wait a minute, you haven't made a dollar. What do you mean you want to give 15% of your profits away? I mean, can we put that in year five and build your wealth first? Because what ends up happening is I'm struggling and I want to help someone else who's struggling. How does that work? It doesn't
Mhm.
quite work. It's much easier, much more expedient if you can build yourself up and then reach back and pull other people along. It's a much quicker route. So I completely agree with you. All the things can be true. All things that can happen. And there's probably a good, better, and best order for those things to happen in. So,
Very true.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Lawana, I appreciate you so much.
Yeah,
Great stuff. Great conversation. Good luck on the launch, by the way. It's going to be fantastic. If you bring this kind of energy to what you do, it's going to be great for sure. So where
great.
can everybody
Thank
find
you.
you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about NextFemme Financial, you can go to NextFemme Financial, and Femme is spelled Femme. If you want to connect with me, I am literally the only Juana Whitmore in the world. So you can put my name into Google, and if it's there, it's me. And so you can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Very nice. I'll make sure to put all that in the description as well. Thanks so much,
Awesome.
Luana. Appreciate you, sister.